and interact with the world, even if it's just all focused on the dog in the beginning. So these are all very good things. So um, I got a lot of this information from a blog, responsible pet ownership blog from Canaday.com. It was dated Thursday, November 6th of 2014 by Lori Darroch. Last name is spelled Darroch. So she said, adding a dog or cat to your family is a great way to teach your children how to be responsible for another living creature, learning to appreciate the work and dedication involved in caring for that pet. And by including them in the care of the pet, children not only learn how to nurture it, but they also learn that loving another creature is much more than just playing with it on occasion. So this takes them beyond the toy level once again. A pet depends on its people to provide food, shelter, and full care. So it's a way for them to empathize. It's a way for them to learn to be responsible for other creatures outside of themselves. So teaching them to feed, actually, the family pet is usually the first chore that's recommended according to Ms. Darroch. So what she says is that because it's something that children can understand, feeding the dog, because they get hungry too, is something that they can connect with the animal with. The animal connects with the children, and then this becomes a way to build a relationship. So this is a pro thing, and a lot of times, like, I bring up children not just because that's the article I found, but it's usually children who give up on the pet. Families with children where it's like it just becomes overwhelming, and the kid has the pet, but there's not really a lot of guidance and stuff, and so then it's just not handled well by the parents, or they picked a pet that just isn't a good fit for a child. So like a dog that has serious behavioral issues is not a good fit for a child. I'm just saying. All right, so things like personal care, brushing, bathing. It's indicated that children who learn to do this for their pet will be a little more attentive to actually brushing their own teeth, brushing their own hair, making sure they get a bath, and all that stuff. The stuff that kids normally kind of fight parents on, they'll become a little more consistent with. It's important also that children are involved in the medical care, witnessing the pet getting a shot, understanding the pet goes through pain just like they do, that they get scared too. All of this is empathy stuff. And it's also good that children are not like completely shielded, depending on their age and their ability to handle these things. But it's good to expose children when they're dealing with pets to, some of the yuckiness of, medical care and some of the scariness. So it's along with that, to the extreme, is when there is the death of a pet. And that's also an important life lesson for children. So they need to learn how to grieve and experience that. If they have to experience that, they need to know how to handle it with guidance from parents. One of the things that's brought up also is that around-the-clock responsibility, putting personal pleasures on hold for the need of your pet, including, this writer says, get the kids up in the middle of the night when the dog has to go pee outside. Get them to understand that this is part of what is required. The mandatory walking, the mandatory playing, mandatory, training the dog in certain things. Teach your kids to train your dogs to do things so that the child understands that the relationship is deeper than that. So this is a really good thing when it comes to having a dog, as a gift for a family. So although I've focused on children so far, we would hope that adults learn those priorities as well. And I've explained to you already that when it comes to anxiety disorders, this is a huge reason why these service dogs are actually trained and called service dogs, because certain adults who normally maybe they don't have family or their family has to work, they wouldn't normally get out of the house and interact with the universe without the focus of the dog and the needs of the dog being higher than them. When someone is very depressed, their needs go down the toilet. But if there's a pet right there, kind of paying attention to them and giving them attention, they'll realize, oh, okay, well, I got to take the dog out for a walk, and they'll focus all of it on the dog's needs, and therefore it kind of gives them impetus to get up out of the chair, out of the bed, and move on, even for just a few minutes at a time. So it's really kind of a good thing in terms of, getting adults even to get into responsible routines for whatever reason their issues are. Dogs used as service dogs to help people go through when they've had a serious accident and they have mobility issues and they need to continue their therapy, but they're they're not ill enough or debilitated enough to stay in physical therapy, residential convalescent homes. They actually are able to do simple things, but they have to expand their movement and activity, and when they don't do it, they will regress. So, for instance, if they had a severe car accident and they have to keep up with the bone and muscle, mobility and growth and strengthening, all of that can be done through a dog, requiring them to get up and walk several times a day. And by focusing again, saying, hey, you need to walk this dog 3 times a day for 20 minutes a time minimum, then you're making sure that patient actually gets up and does that. So those are things that you can, those are a good reason to have a dog as a gift for an adult. So just throwing it out there. There's also been recently a press release on an American study about health benefits, especially in terms of anxiety levels in children owning dogs. So going back to children, we've talked about it with adults before, but dogs more so than any other pets. Pets in general help children have lower levels of anxiety, but dogs seem to have a greater effect. And this increases, having a pet, particularly a dog, increases oxytocin and decreases cortisol. So it decreases obesity, increases heart health, and increase, empathy, all related to improved emotional mental health among children. We already knew that about adults, but I just wanted to explain to you that scientifically we've got some big, conclusions come out of this. So it's a great reason. I've had a lot of clients and students get a dog for their child after a divorce or a death of one of the parents. When they're ready, they start getting a pet to kind of focus their energies on and actually help them reduce. I mean, that's an extreme reason to get a dog for a family, and I certainly agree for adults too. If you lost your spouse, it might be there might become a time where getting a dog as a gift for someone who needs that kind of emotional therapy is good. So in November 30th, 2015, from Relax News Online, this American study shines a new light on the benefits that dogs bring to children and demonstrates that the man's best friend reduces anxiety levels in children. So there is this is just very repetitive. I'm sorry. I'm going through my little stack of garbage over here with all their things. Oh, so here's the actual numbers here. They carried out the study over 18 months with 643 children with an average age of 7 who came for an annual consultation to pediatric primary care facility of New York. Of these children, 73% had a pet, 58% of them had a dog. 21% of the children did not have a pet at home. So the researchers tested their activity and food and emotional difficulties, all this stuff, and then asked them if they had a dog at home. And so they noticed that with all of this, including, and this is the thing, even their BMI levels and everything, because if you have more fat versus muscle in your body, your hormones actually change. You actually have different levels of hormones, like a different cocktail in your bloodstream. So that also causes some anxiety too. So they looked at all of that as part of kind of flexing and flowing, making sure that everybody's on the same playing field to get the result that, or the conclusion that having a pet, especially a dog, will decrease mental and emotional anxiety and problems, as well as decrease obesity. So it's now on the cdc.gov pediatric issues website. Okay, so finally, the whole personal decision thing I mentioned in the con section, right, where you don't want to get a dog because it's a personal thing. It's can also be a pro. If you make it a team effort, whether it's a family with kids or a couple who want a dog or what have you, you're going to likely decrease the reasons that the dog might be given up or the stress that might come with it. I've spent some time on previous episodes about picking out a dog, and you want a dog who loves your smell, a dog with the right temperament for you and any other of your pets in the home, and a dog whose needs match your lifestyle. Don't pick a dog that's just not going to work for your lifestyle. There's certain dogs that totally fine in small spaces. If you live in an apartment, there's some dogs that just sleep all day and they love that, and they have very short sprint moments where like a greyhound. So there are important there's an important bonding that happens when humans choose a dog together that seeps into the care and affection for the dog will be brought home. So if you want that, the bonding starts at first sight. And I really believe that that's where you should start with. So hastily purchasing or adopting a dog for someone else without their input puts a lot of pressure on making it work, quote unquote, which is not healthy for the dog or the human. Now we've got a forced relationship that we've got to make work, or we feel guilty about it. So it's really kind of not a good thing. We don't want any buyers or adopters remorse. So we want to be prepared to care for it and invest your time, the training, everything that goes into living with a dog. And it's well known that across the country, the number of dumped dogs, particularly puppies, at the shelters increases significantly during the months of February and March. And that would be literally 2 to 3 months after Christmas. So I think a pet as a gift for a stable family or couple is just fine if and only if you allow for everyone to be part of choosing that pet, that you're prepared to pay for not only the shots, but the training and the mishaps and the lost personal items that can happen with both the dog and humans that are getting, adjusted to each other. Be prepared for extra work and equipment for a puppy or dog that might have behavioral issues. Be prepared for the rules of the house, the boundaries before you pick out a dog. What are the rules of the house? What are we going to agree is okay for the dog to do and not okay to do? If you want to surprise a loved one with a gift of a dog or another pet, I suggest you simply purchase a toy for that pet with a handwritten gift certificate declaring the gift. Be prepared to take weeks or months to go search for just the right dog or pet of your choice. Pick out the bedding and the leashes and the collars and the food together. Take your time. Make it a bonding personal journey that helps carry you through those rough nights of no sleep, or the accidents on the floor, or the chewed shoes because you forgot to close the closet door. So, the usual stuff that happens when you're adjusting to in your relationship. So the best pet parents I've encountered in my years as a trainer, the absolute best and the best, most responsible children with pets are the ones I noticed who really took their time looking for the right animal and talking to each other about their desires and expectations. And honestly, that kind of journey just ain't nothing more like holiday like that. Take the time to just say, hey, here's a toy to suggest let's go pick out a dog together, and maybe you end up picking out a cat together. Who knows? But don't push a relationship in the situation on on a person as a surprise. I think that's, unless you guys have already been looking for a dog and you picked one out and then you kind of lied to your friend or your spouse or whatever and said, oh, I don't think we can afford to adopt a dog right now. And then you go back to the shelter and say, okay. I got it. But so make sure it's something that you guys really plan out, prepare for, and take your time with, because this is hopefully forever, unless something horrible happens to you guys. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the dog as a gift. It's not all bad. The very reasons that it could be bad are the very reasons it could be good if you do it the right way. So I think that pretty much concludes our whole little deal on episode 68 is Dog is Gift. I wish you all a very lovely holiday, and I hope you get some time off away from the craziness, and maybe it's time for you to investigate researching finding a pet in the next couple of months, and I wish you well. Until then, I'll talk to you next week. Bye.